All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about something that I don't necessarily like to do, but I kind of do. It's kind of a love and hate relationship. I really like using moving baits. I really like using hard baits, spinner baits, jerk baits, crank baits, all that good stuff that a lot of us like to use. You know, it's just a lot of fun, in my opinion. But that's a football head jig. We're going to talk about football head jig fishing, or jig fishing in general, during the winter time. Now, I've covered it in spring, I've covered it in fall, I've covered it in summer. I just hadn't really covered it in winter. But it's definitely a technique that you need to keep on the front of your boat. It's kind of like today. We got bluebird sunny skies. We do have a little bit of wind, but a lot of spots it's slick calm. You know, with those slick calm conditions, a lot of times these fish will move down and they'll either suspend or get close to the bottom. In this case, a lot of these fish are close to the bottom or right as a ledge drops off into deeper water, and the football jig is more efficient to target it. But either way, we're going to talk about all that, and stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, guys, so you know, I like throwing a couple different jigs. One of the main ones is G-Money jigs. Hags Baits makes a good jig. War Eagle makes a good jig, but whatever jig you're comfortable with using, I typically use a football head this time of year. And I do something a little different. I usually put a grub on the back of mine. Why? It's got less action in it, okay? It's kind of like throwing a Cinco this time of year. It doesn't have a whole lot of action. It screams, I'm cold. You know, it's not darty and crazy all over the place. You know, when this falls, it's pretty subtle. The crawl, or the grub itself, is kind of fluttering real slow, and with those crawl chunks that you put on there, it's going to be kicking pretty wild as it goes down. I typically don't want that. I want something more subtle. So, you know, throwing a grub style trailer on the back, or, you know, like a chunk, I think the old timers used to call them the pork rind trailers or something like that. You used to get them in a jar, can't wash it off your hands. But, you know, either way, anything that's subtle, you know, pick and choose, try something different. You never know. If somebody tells you you're doing something wrong and you're catching fish, you're obviously doing something right. So either way, one of the main things too, though, is your setup, okay? I typically, 99% of the time, if I'm not fishing super heavy cover, like lily pads or something like that, something that's going to be hard to get through, I'm going to go with a heavy, 7'4" heavy. 99% of the time, though, I'm gonna be fishing this around rocks and stuff, because I'm trying to mimic crawfish, especially this time of year. I'm gonna be fishing it on points with rocks and stuff like that, trying to mimic those crawfish. So there isn't a whole lot of, I don't need a whole lot of, if that makes sense. I need something with a little bit of give, because like that 6-pounder I caught, the fish really didn't bite. I got tight line, never really felt that fish, but my line's moving, and I see my line moving, and obviously that's something different. So that's when I set the hook. So, you know, a lot of times they're going to hit this stuff super slow, and when they do, it's kind of hard to say, well, you know, I got a bite or I don't have a bite. But either way, I'm going to be throwing a 7'3" medium heavy action rod, and I'm typically going to go with that 7.5 to 1 or 7.3 to 1 gear ratio reel. I like a higher speed reel, 15-pound fluorocarbon, okay? Less stretch, that way when I make those long casts, I can get that line up so I can get a good hook penetration, hook set, stuff like that. But either way, the way I'm going to work this jig during the winter is going to be completely different. I'm not going to be stroking or popping that jig where I'm doing exactly like I just did, where I'm just pop, trying to make that bait real erratic and jump up, jump down, all that stuff. I'm just trying to let that bait sink, hit bottom as it is right now, and I'm going to pull that bait. I'm going to pull it just like that, and I'm going to reel at the same time as I pull it. But either way, I'm going to throw that bait out there, let it sink, hit bottom. As it hits bottom, I'm going to be pulling that bait, okay? I want it hitting bottom. You're going to feel every contour, every rock, every stick, everything else, and you're usually going to feel that thud or nothing at all as a fish goes to bite it. But, you know, dragging that bait and using that reel, you can cover a lot of water with a football head jig instead of just dragging and then soaking. Dragging and soaking. Yes, you're going to catch fish dragging and letting that bait soak, but at the same time, my goal is to cover as much water as possible. I'm not sitting there trying to catch a fish that doesn't necessarily want to bite, okay? I'm looking for those fish that do want to eat. So, you know, I like covering a lot more water, and dragging that jig like that is a super simple technique that you can use to cover a lot more water while using that soft bait, something that's more subtle when you need those subtle presentations on days like today. So either way, guys, if the video helps you at all, make sure to give me a thumbs up. It helps me out a whole lot. It's a super easy way to support the channel. Don't forget, if you ever have any questions, drop a comment down below. I'd love to answer your questions. I love talking fishing with you guys if you just want to talk fishing. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm always putting out content on bass fishing. Why wouldn't you subscribe? It's free. That costs you a dime. Either way, I'll see you next time.